Well, my name is François, and today I wanted to talk about what I call Wi-Fi DevOps, which is automation integration, going along with what Peter talked about yesterday and what John just talked about. So I have a couple of objectives for this presentation. Obviously, the Murphy came with me. Okay. First one is define. So I wanted to kind of define a few things, and I'm going to talk about DevOps and I'm going to talk about Wi-Fi DevOps, what I call Wi-Fi DevOps. Then I wanted to kind of share some experience. This year I had the opportunity to work on a couple of automation projects, and I kind of observed a couple of things I wanted to share with you guys and talk about the industry trend as well. Then I want to explain to you guys why us as Wi-Fi engineers are the best ones to actually take on all of the automation, the Wi-Fi automation jobs. And then hopefully at the end I can kind of inspire you guys to do more of it. That's my personal objective for this presentation. So if we take a look at DevOps and if we try to understand what DevOps is, it actually came around in the 2000s. This guy from Belgium, his name is, oh now I forgot, Patrick Dubois. No, I didn't. He was like a software consultant, and he kind of observed some inefficiency between the dev team and the operational teams, and he got fed up of it. So he created this presentation at a conference, and he talked about this DevOps concept of having like a new methodology so we can create some applications, or we can create some sort of bridge, efficient bridge between the dev team and the ops team. So that's kind of like what DevOps is. It's actually been around in the IT, in the IT industry for a while, maybe 15 years now. And if you look at a definition of DevOps, it's actually it's actually quite hard to find one definition of DevOps. But if you look on Wikipedia, they have this very simple generic definition that says that DevOps is a set of practices that combine software development and IT operations. So that definition is nice because you can clearly see you have some development on one hand, what we call scripting or programming, and then you have the operational stuff on the other hand, what we call Wi-Fi sucks, right? But looking at other documentation, I actually found another definition that I kind of like better because it ties in better with what we're seeing in the Wi-Fi industry right now. And this comes from a paper that got published last year. And it defines DevOps as a combination of specific practices, a culture change, and tools, right? And this will kind of tie in nicely with what I call the Wi-Fi DevOps that I'll kind of define later on. Okay? So that's what I kind of wanted to talk about DevOps, kind of define where all of this is coming from. If you want to know more about DevOps, these two books are great. The first one is called The Phoenix Project. It's a novel. You're following like an IT manager that's becoming a VP of IT and nothing is working well. So he's kind of implementing the DevOps methodology and you follow him along. It's nice. And then they took all of the theory out of the Phoenix Project novel and they put it into the non-fictional version of it, and you get the DevOps handbook. So if you think about DevOps and listening to the audiobooks, I kind of realized that DevOps is actually a new way of doing things, like a new mindset, right? The IT teams kind of have to evolve and think differently. And so if you want to summarize what DevOps is, it started in like the software IT industry, I guess. You can think of DevOps as like a new mindset, a new way of thinking of things, and a new way of doing things. Now, so if we talk about the Wi-Fi industry, we can see that we have a couple of trends in the Wi-Fi industry, and these are a couple of things that I've observed over the year. Do you guys know these tools? How many of you guys have used these tools before? Okay, keep your hands up if you're still using these tools in production today. All right. What about these tools? Yeah, so we can kind of see that right now. We're kind of in this situation where we still have the old stuff, and we're starting to play with the new stuff, right? And then I came up with my own, unsorted, non-exhaustive list of random terms that Peter started yesterday. And these are all like new tools that are becoming available to us, right? If you look at the vendors, they always, they're starting to leverage cloud and microservices and, all of these things And they're becoming available for us, the operational guys, to actually use and start doing some new things with them. So we're starting to see that. And I mean, here we've been here for 2 days, and how many times have you heard API? Are you counting, Keith? Keep you count. Right, so if you think about what I call Wi-Fi DevOps, it's a new mindset. Just like DevOps was a new way of doing things in the software development industry, I think all of these tools will help us as Wi-Fi engineer do what we do today in just a new way. So it's going to force us to think about doing things differently, Wi-Fi monitoring or troubleshooting, incident response, whatever it is. But it's also, and Jean talked about it right before me, it's also going to enable us to actually add services, maybe add some value to the business. So, so the money guys are going to start to like us more because we can monetize Wi-Fi, right? We'll see. So if we summarize what Wi-Fi DevOps is, I guess that's my own definition of what it is. But I've kind of, took the 3 sections from the definition that we had earlier, the specific practices, the cultural changes, and the tools. And we can see that in the Wi-Fi industry, we're starting to see this. Specific practices, right? You guys remember when we have to update a controller, we have to test it in the lab, make sure it works, and then we have to schedule maintenance windows, and then we have to reboot the controller and then wait for the APs to come back up, right? So that's like a whole process. But maybe with new services, with the cloud and new stuff we have available now, maybe the vendors are already making changes in the cloud. And we don't even know, and the Wi-Fi is in production, right? The microservices updating on us. So this is already happening in the background for us, but maybe this is going to be even more often in the future. The cultural change as well, that's something I see more on the operational side of things. Like, how do we monitor networks? We used to use SNMP, MIBs, and all of this. How often do we pool? We have all of these questions that we have to answer. But then in the future with webhooks, WebSockets, RESTful APIs, we're going to have a new way of doing things. How do you collect the data? From which equipment? The AP directly, a controller, the cloud? Where do you send the data? Do you send it to another cloud? Do you send it to like a Slack, instant messaging platform? So the way we monitor the Wi-Fi network can also be rethought because we have these new tools available to us. How do we do incident response, right? And the tools, obviously, the tools are there to kind of allow us to have this new mindset and think about things differently. So APIs, we can create our custom dashboards, and we can do all of this leveraging these tools. And if we look at the promise of Wi-Fi DevOps, of automation, I categorized it in 2 different sections here, or categories. The first one is network automation, right? So if we listen to the marketing message, Wi-Fi DevOps will allow us to do network automation, which means pretty much doing more in less time, right? Or letting the computer do stuff for us 24/7, so it's going to do less mistake, right? As long as we program the computer properly, because you can also automate the mistakes. And then you also have the integration. So we're going to be able to use all of these new tools to integrate the data we're collecting from the Wi-Fi network with other systems. Right? If you want to do third-party integrations, if you want to do integration with some of the Wi-Fi tools we have or monitoring platform, so integration with the operations or the IT in the IT realm, but we can also start doing integration with the operational or the business, right? If we want to get data out of the Wi-Fi network and then use that data to, for some BI uses or, monetize the Wi-Fi somehow. Okay, so that's also possible, and that's a promise of Wi-Fi DevOps. So now the CTO going to conferences, they hear about all of this, right? They hear about Wi-Fi DevOps, automation, and new integration. So now the expectation from the management is very high. They come back to us and they're like, oh, now we can do more in less time, huh? Okay, we can start automating stuff. We can deploy faster. We can, be more proactive about things. And also, I happened to meet the COO the other day, and he had this crazy cool idea where we could, extract the location of, devices and put it on the dashboard so everyone knows where, the barcode scanners are or whatever, right? So the management is starting to have a little bit more expectation in what we can do with the systems that they invest in. And also, they have these new use cases that can emerge as a result. On the other hand, you have the network team realities, right? And this is what I've observed. But we can see that network teams, they're kind of shrinking, right? People are now replaced. It's hard to find who's hiring for a Wi-Fi guy right now. Is it easy? Super easy, right? So it's kind of hard to find the qualified people and to replace those people. And sometimes I've seen this year, like, some teams, they kind of lay off half of the team. And guess what? The workload doesn't change, right? So they have to do the same amount of work with like half of the people or 1/3 of the people. So on the one hand, you have the teams that are not growing, and on the other hand, you have more challenging work coming your way because you have to integrate all of that new automation, you have to learn about these new tools, and you have the business coming to you with new business application to build on top of the network operations that you're doing. So these are the realities of the network teams. So where is the place of the Wi-Fi engineer in all of this? Well, I didn't put all of the operational stuff we have to do on a regular basis. But on top of this, we have to learn. We have to learn about the new stuff. Learning is not really a problem for us because, in 25 years, Wi-Fi has changed 7 times. So we always learning is kind of like in our DNA. So we can pick up on things. But here we have to learn automations. We've seen yesterday it's not that complex, and we just saw with John. And then we have to implement it, right? We have to implement some of the automation because we just have more work to do. And then we have to deliver these new applications to the business, right? So everyone is happy. So we're getting busier and busier. The work is changing a little bit. It's interesting. And what we're also seeing is emergence of new roles. So I've looked at it more. If you get out of the network team and you look at the infrastructure team in general, now if you go on Indeed, you can find these type of jobs, the DevOps network engineer or the infra ops. And I searched for multiple countries. You have actually a NetOps engineer position in Prague, if you guys are interested in staying here. So you have these type of new jobs. And when I worked on my automation project, I worked with those type of people. And it's more like programming people, right? They're really good at programming. They understand the network. But in terms of Wi-Fi, they don't really understand Wi-Fi. They've never done a survey. They don't have any experience with the tools or anything, right? So we have these, we can have these disparities in the roles. So the way I see the evolution of the Wi-Fi engineer job is obviously we're going to have to keep on, developing our networking skills. But I think more and more we're going to need to have programming skills, right? And here I don't mean we're going to have to be experts at, coding and spinning off Docker containers and all of this. But we're going to need to have enough programming skills to make some damage, I say. So just to be efficient at what we do, right? So to me, it's like learning about like the concept of programming, what programming is, maybe a couple of programming languages, understand what an API is, what JSON is, how to interact with an API. I think that's the basic knowledge that we're going to need to be more efficient at what's coming our way for I guess, what I call a Wi-Fi engineer. If we look at I took this out of a random computer networking bachelor degree curriculum course. You see that at school nowadays, they include programming in networking programs, right? And this is just one example, but all schools, all universities kind of do the same today, right? So we have new engineers coming up in our teams that know how to program, right? Which is, I guess, good. But then we have this in DevOps. If I go back to DevOps, there's this concept of the wall of confusion. So it's like the lack of communication, processes, integrations between the op and the dev team, right? And that creates that very inefficient process when these two teams are trying to talk to one another. And when I worked on my automation projects, I kind of saw this because when I was talking to the net dev engineer, right, they were super good at programming, but they didn't understand Wi-Fi. And then I was talking with the Wi-Fi team on the other end, so I was kind of like on top of the bridge, right? The wall, sorry. Talking to the two teams, trying to be the bridge, I guess I wanted to say. And I think our job as Wi-Fi engineer would be to kind of take that bridge, that wall down, and can become the bridge between the ops and the dev team. So to go back to what I call the competitive advantage, why I think we as Wi-Fi engineers are the best one to take on all of these Wi-Fi DevOps work, all of the Wi-Fi automation and integration work? Well, first of all, I think that my definition of a good Wi-Fi engineer, obviously is someone who knows Wi-Fi. But if you want to, I know that sounds stupid. But usually, the more you work, the more you troubleshoot Wi-Fi. You also realize that if you want to be a good Wi-Fi engineer, and I don't know if Jim is here. Jim will know that. But you need to go, yeah, he's over there, okay. You need to know networking as well, right? Because when they come to you and they say Wi-Fi sucks, and you come back to them and you say, it's not the Wi-Fi, it's not enough for them, right? They're going to tell you, what do you mean it's not the Wi-Fi? Look, it says the Wi-Fi sucks. So you have to come back to them and say, no, it's not the Wi-Fi. Look, it's a wrong VLAN, or it's a routing, or it's firewalling. So you kind of have to prove your point. So in order to prove your point, you have to understand, what you're talking about. And then if you have a networking issue, same thing, right? They're going to come back to you and say, okay, what do you mean it's not the network? It says on the application, connection failure, right? So we have to go back and then explain, okay, it's a connection failure because, your server is loaded, or I didn't get an answer from the DHCP or something like this. And then the server guy is like, oh yeah, the DHCP is like 100% CPU. Told you, it's not the network. So in order to be a good Wi-Fi engineer, you have to understand the whole stack, right? And my point here is, as Wi-Fi engineers, we're always learning different things because we kind of have to, and it's, we're all here today to kind of learn different things, and we always come back to these conferences because we always have new stuff to learn, and so learning is kind of in our DNA. And if we look at the situations here that I've just presented, in order to take on all of the Wi-Fi automation work, we have two choices. It's either us learning a little bit about programming, or the programmers learning about Wi-Fi. So in my opinion, I think it's easier for us to learn a little bit about programming than for the programmers to learn about Wi-Fi, right? Right? One thing that I think is critical as well for developing or doing all of the Wi-Fi automation integration work is understanding Wi-Fi operations, right? I think understanding Wi-Fi operation is key. If you have the field work, you kind of know what works, what doesn't, right? You've been there, you've done bad design, you've corrected your bad design, you've done good design. You have that experience on the fields. Also, you've used the tools. So you know which tool to use when. When looking at the tools, you know which metric to look at, and then you know which metric are important in a very specific step of the way. So you understand that process as well. And you understand which tasks can be automated and which tasks cannot be automated, right? So talking about what Jean was presenting earlier with the different step process, the first phase is identifying the different steps that you can automate. So as Wi-Fi engineers, we kind of know all of these steps already, right? And we know which steps can be automated and which cannot. So I think we have an advantage here with understanding the Wi-Fi operations. But most importantly, what I think we do have as Wi-Fi engineers is passion, right? And when you look at the Wi-Fi people in general, it's usually very passionate Wi-Fi, passionate people about Wi-Fi. And I usually compare the Wi-Fi engineers with people working with mental health, right? Because if you work with mental health, I know I'm going to get there. When you work with mental health, you have to be passionate about it to do it, right? Because if you're not passionate about mental health and you're just dropped into a mental hospital, maybe it's going to drive you crazy, right? So you have to be very passionate to be working as a nurse or a doctor in these environments. And Wi-Fi is kind of like the same thing. If you want to work in Wi-Fi, like everyone is against us, right? It's always the Wi-Fi sucks. So we're going to have the passion to kind of help us and drives what we do as a Wi-Fi engineer. So we're very passionate people, and we can see it like everywhere we come back to the conferences, right? Right? How many people do you have coming back over? Yeah, a lot of people. So passion is very good because it drives the thirst to learn, right? We're always learning about new things, and Wi-Fi 7, it doesn't really scare us. Maybe it does a little bit for a while, but then we learn about it, and then we're excited about Wi-Fi 8, right? So learning is something that's is driven by passion. Passion also drives curiosity. We don't even realize it, but by default, we're just curious about different things. If you hear about Wi-Fi, technology you've never heard about, you're like, what? What is this? And then you start asking questions, and you're just curious, naturally. And passion drives actions as well, right? How many of you guys have tried something in your lab at night and you tell your wife, oh, it's just going to take 10 minutes, and then 2 hours later, she's like fully asleep and you're not done, right? So passion also drives action. So I think passion is our advantage here. You know, when we're going to have new projects, new Wi-Fi automation integration projects, we're going to have the passion to actually make it happen. And this is what happened to me, actually. My personal story is that when I went to school, university, I did a lot of programming in my bachelor degree. And I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't enjoy it. So when it was time for me to choose my master program, I actually chose the master that had the least amount of programming in it. It happened to be networking. So I did that because of my experience with programming. And now that I can actually do programming and apply it to what I do as a Wi-Fi engineer, I actually enjoy it. I enjoy it nowadays because I can actually see it can help us to do our Wi-Fi job better. So I think our competitive advantage is a combination of passion for the technology and care, because usually when you have the passion, you care about what you do. We usually care about our job, right? We want to make sure the Wi-Fi doesn't suck. And we also care about the users, right? We don't design Wi-Fi for us. We usually do it for the users, and we care about them. So I think our true competitive advantage here is the passion for Wi-Fi and the care for what we do. So to kind of inspire you, I was thinking of, how I would end this presentation and kind of inspire you guys to do a lot more automation work and try to get started with it. Peter talked about the fact that it's easy. Jean just demonstrated it for us, right? Me, I was thinking about the fact that we can actually use it to help a lot of people. So I just introduced the slide is named "Let's Keep on Helping." And I think that with Wi-Fi automation, we can help our peers. So we can help each other. If you have someone in your team that's struggling with a task, and you could see that, with like a simple script, you can automate the task and free up a lot of time for them to actually do meaningful stuff. You can help them, maybe teach them a little bit about it, and go along the way. We can also help each other as a community, right? If we have someone in the community who needs help and doesn't really know how to automate a task, we can kind of, same thing, teach them and show them how to get about it. We can also help the users, right? If we develop all of these automation tools, integration tools, and yeah, I know I've done work for student dorms, and I love when they tell me I cannot do my homework, right? So that's what they mean. That's why I choose that icon. Yeah, so if we start developing tools that help us to be proactive about detecting Wi-Fi issues versus just waiting for the user to complain, right? If we create tools that help us validate a new Wi-Fi installation, right? And so all of the problems kind of emerge right away, and we can fix them right away. We can also increase the user experience and hopefully help the users out. And we can also help the business, right? If we create these new applications, if we extract data from the Wi-Fi network and feed it to another application so the business can develop new use cases, be happy, make more money, then we can also help the business as well. So that was kind of like my message. Let's be helpful. Thank you.